Welcome to the Daily Energize Podcast, where you'll get a jolt of energy and a quick tip to help you conquer your day. Now here's your host, the Prince of Positivity himself, Spencer Jones.
Hey Energizer, Spencer Jones here, the Prince of Positivity, coming at you with another episode of the Daily Energize. Thank you for being here and joining me, and if you could do me a really quick favor and take 30 seconds and leave a rating and review of this podcast, I would really appreciate it. I know not all platforms allow it, but if the one you are listening to it on does, if you could take those 30 seconds and just leave a comment, a review, something like that, a rating, I would really, really appreciate it. That way the platform knows that, hey, people are listening to this and liking it, and then they'll share it out with more people. So thank you for your love and support. I appreciate it, and thank you for hopping in and joining me in this episode. So today's episode is all about being intentional. Now, we've talked about intentions before, setting our intentions for the week, like your goals and intentions. But those aren't the kind of intentions I'm discussing today. I mean, it's still intentional, but just a little bit differently. Today's intentions are more about what are you doing intentionally in your life? Like the job that you have. Is that intentional, or did you fall into it? What about the things you say to people? Are you intentional with the words that you choose and say to other people, or do you just talk to talk and say words to say words? Or another example is, what about the people you hang out with? Are they just the people you got thrown in with, or are you intentional about who you surround yourself with? Those are just some of the other aspects of being intentional. There are others, but let's just focus on those because we don't have a ton of time together. So let's first focus on words, because this is a big category, and I'll be honest, I struggle with it at times. I've always been a talker, a person who just talks endlessly, it seems, and I know I annoyed my parents and brothers with it when I was growing up, but now I try to be more selective with my words. I try to be very intentional about what I'm saying and when I say it. Now, that doesn't happen all the time, but I do try to be more intentional. So, an example would be when I was growing up, we used to say a prayer before every meal, right? Every meal we would say this prayer. And I could say it forwards and backwards, up and down, any which way. But I could say it without thinking about it, right? Because all I'm doing is I'm looking at the food on the table going, I'm just ready to eat, let's go. And yet we had to sit here and pray. And I could just rattle that thing off. And all I'm doing is thinking about the food. Well, I wasn't being intentional about that prayer. I wasn't thinking about what I was saying. What about another example is, what about when we say, I love you to our spouse, our kids, or our family members? We say, I love you. How many times do we just throw that around? Oh, love you. And we move on. And while we mean it to a degree, when we say it, it doesn't really have that intention. It's just a quick throwaway thing. Why can't we be intentional and give it that feeling, that emotion? When we say a prayer, when we say an affirmation, when we say anything to anyone, even ourselves, let's be intentional about it, to give it the intended energy. Let's be focused. Now, it takes a little more energy. You might realize it, and you probably can't do that all the time. That's okay. But start with little things, with the I love yous, with when you're talking to someone, be there and present. We'll talk more about that later in another episode. But let's be intentional. What about the people you surround yourself with? Man, for us growing up, we're thrown into it, right? They're the people and kids in our class. And we kind of feel like, hey, we vibe with these people, and we start hanging out. We're more or less kind of thrown in. We get to choose to a degree. And then as we get a little older, in middle school and high school, then we can become more selective, but they're still generally just friends we're thrown into. And that's fine. They can be great. They can be wonderful. I'm not saying they're bad. But sometimes they don't serve us. So now At your age, are you being intentional about who you are surrounding yourself with? Are they people who support you, who love you for you? Or are you just a number to them? They don't really care. Maybe they care because you pay for things. I'm not sure. Only you could decide that. But take a look around and think, hey, are these people who really love me and care for me and, I'm looking out for and they're looking out for me? Are those people around me, or are people who want me to fail or who are just here to be greedy? Are those people around me? I can't tell you, but you could tell you. Take a look around and be intentional. So as we go through today, I invite you to start off just today to be intentional. Start thinking of some phrases or words that you say often that you can be a little more intentional with and you can build on. Start looking at the people around you. Are you intentional about who is surrounding you? I understand we can't always be that way, right? Sometimes our coworkers are our coworkers, but we can be intentional about other people, other groups, and other things in our life. So I invite you to take some time to reflect and be intentional going forward. All right. Thank you for hopping in, joining me. I appreciate you. Keep shining your beautiful light with the world. And until next time, I will catch you later.
Thank you.